the heart of Chile, hidden deep in the remote forests of the Maule region, stood a place that few dared to enter and even fewer escaped. A place where horror wore the mask of charity, where faith was a weapon and silence was survival. This was Colonia Dignidad. Paul Schäfer arrived in Chile in 1961, a self-proclaimed prophet, a man of God, or so he claimed. In reality, he was a fugitive, a former Nazi sympathizer fleeing child molestation charges in Germany. With the support of Chilean officials and wealthy German expatriates, he established a commune, an agricultural utopia that promised a simple, disciplined life free from sin. The reality was far from divine. Colonia Dignidad was a fortress, high fences topped with barbed wire, watchtowers manned by armed guards, underground bunkers, interrogation rooms, and secret tunnels stretching beneath the compound like veins feeding a malignant heart. The world saw it as a peaceful missionary outpost, a refuge for German immigrants seeking a better life. But behind those walls, Schäfer ruled with absolute power, and Colonia Dignidad became one of the most terrifying cults in history. Inside, Schäfer's word was law. Families were separated, children were torn from their parents, raised in isolation, molded into obedient disciples. Women were forced into labor, men were broken down, subjected to relentless psychological control. Schäfer used medication to sedate his victims, ensuring submission. Public beatings were routine. Dissenters disappeared. And the children, Schäfer's most frequent victims, he preyed on them under the guise of purity, subjecting them to unspeakable acts. They were stripped of identity, of free will, of childhood itself. If they resisted, they were beaten. If they spoke out, they vanished. Then in the 1970s, Chile's darkest era began. General Augusto Pinochet seized power, ushering in a reign of terror. Schäfer, ever the opportunist, welcomed the dictatorship with open arms. Colonia Dignidad became more than a cult. It became a government-sanctioned black site. Political dissidents were sent there, few returned. Victims were blindfolded, dragged into underground chambers where the walls bore the stains of those who came before them. Torture was relentless. Electrocution, waterboarding, rape. Some prisoners were forced to dig their own graves before being executed. Others were injected with poison, their bodies dumped in mass graves, erased from history. Schäfer and his followers worked side by side with Pinochet's secret police, orchestrating some of the most brutal human rights violations of the regime. Medical experimentation was another gruesome aspect of Colonia Dignidad's horrors. Witnesses later testified that Schäfer and his doctors conducted tests on prisoners, injecting them with unknown substances, exposing them to toxic chemicals, and performing surgeries without anesthesia. Some experiments aimed to perfect methods of torture, ensuring maximum pain with minimal visible injury. Weapon stockpiling also played a significant role in Colonia Dignidad's operations. The colony housed one of the largest illegal arsenals in Chile, including automatic weapons, grenades, and even chemical warfare agents. These weapons were supplied to Pinochet's military and used against dissidents. The compound was effectively an armed fortress, ensuring that no one could escape or expose its secrets. For decades, the horrors remained buried. Survivors, broken and terrified, remained silent. The Chilean government turned a blind eye. Schäfer was untouchable. But in the 1990s, the walls began to crack. Former members fled, speaking of the horrors within. Investigators uncovered decades of abuse, torture, and murder. Schäfer, his power crumbling, went into hiding. For years, he remained a ghost, a fugitive lurking in the shadows. But in 2005, justice finally came. Found hiding in Argentina, he was extradited to Chile and sentenced to 33 years in prison for child abuse, torture, and human rights violations. The exposure of Colonia Dignidad led to the discovery of mass graves within the property. Investigators unearthed human remains, though many of the bodies were either burned or chemically dissolved to remove evidence. The true number of victims may never be known, but estimates suggest hundreds, if not more, perished within its walls. Despite Schäfer's imprisonment, justice was slow. Many of his loyalists remained free, some reintegrating into society without punishment. Others fled, taking their secrets with them. Only a handful of former officials faced trial, and many victims never received proper reparations. In 2010, Schäfer died behind bars, a frail, defeated man. But his victims, those who never escaped Colonia Dignidad, were given no such justice. Their bodies lie in unmarked graves, their suffering erased by time, their voices silenced forever. Today, Colonia Dignidad still stands, its name changed, its history whitewashed. Tourists walk the grounds where men were executed, where children screamed in the dark. But the ghosts remain. Whispers of the past seep through the soil, through the stone, through the air itself. And the question lingers, how many more secrets lie buried beneath Colonia Dignidad?